Good morning and welcome to the Boulder Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. And I was just thinking as that song, what a great song to introduce today, the fifth principle, the democratic process and the right of conscience. I'm Paul Brennison, and I'm joined today by Service Associate Thomas Christopher and our tech ushers, Deborah Minch and Mary Stackpole, who will help things run very smoothly. Our senior minister, Reverend Lydia Ferrante Roseberry, is on a well-deserved ministerial sabbatical through August 9th. She'll return soon, yay! And the most important people to mention are all of you, this fellowship and all the wonderful people, for you are the reason for any of it. As I say the welcome words today, I invite you to shift into gallery mode if you haven't already done so, and scroll through the screen so you can experience the lovely diversity of this congregation, because without it and without you, there would be no us. You are welcome here today in all the beauty of languages, cultures, skin tones, shapes, and sizes that come together in your uniqueness. You are welcome here. In all the ways you experience and express gender, you are welcome here today. In the beauty of who you love and how you love, you are welcome here today. In all the ways you make your living and the places you're from, you are welcome here today. Christian, pagan, humanist, Jew, Buddhist, mystic, Muslim, Unitarian, Universalist, with all the traditions that inform your spiritual life, you are welcome here today. No matter how long you are away, nor how soon you will return, you are welcome here. Whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears, you are welcome here. You are invited to join us with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. You are welcome here today. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of all people, our UU principle number one. We acknowledge that our community is located on the lands once stewarded by the Arapaho, Ute, Lakota, and Cheyenne people. Our congregation honors Indigenous legacy and respects the enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous people and their traditional homelands through our connections to Right Relationship Boulder. We acknowledge that we live in a time when Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, BIPOC, and Latino, Latina, Latina, and Hispanic people are devaluated, violated, and killed because of systemic racism. We commit ourselves to becoming anti-racists in ourselves and our institutions by taking actions to dismantle racism in society, by taking guidance from and honoring the lived experience of those who identify as BIPOC, and developing personal relationships between cultures. If you're new here, we're glad you found us and hope that in this virtual community, you can experience the warmth and love of this congregation. Each Sunday is different here, so please come back a few times to really get to know us. For example, today we are exploring Unitarian Universalist principle number 5 in a rather unique way. If you want to get better acquainted and better connected, please see the chat window for the link to our first-time visitors page, or email your information to our office manager, Carol, at officemanager@bvuuf.org. Her email address will be in the chat window as well. And do be sure to check out the fellowship calendar and Connections Weekly for all the opportunities we have to stay connected. Finally, if we have any new visitors who would like to introduce yourself in the chat, please do. for we love to get to know who is among us. And finally, you're all invited to stay for announcements and a virtual coffee hour after the service. Now, if you have a chalice at home and you can light it with me as I light our fellowship chalice, so we will know where all the chalices are, please write in the chat, chalice lit, and the name of your town. Now, as I say these words, as I light our chalice, please join me. We light this chalice for warmth of love, for light of truth, and energy of action. And now, as I sing our bowl again, inviting it to draw you deeper into the present moment and this, our beloved community. Please sing with us.
Today, we are considering the fifth principle, the right of conscience and the use of democratic process. In particular, the right of conscience. Rather than just talk about this principle, we are going back into our history to see how Unitarians balanced the right of conscience and the democratic process in 1886. The Reverend A.P. Putnam said this about us before the British and Foreign Unitarian Association in London in 1883.
American Unitarianism has become a medley of doubts and denials, petty criticisms, and secular teachings. It never ceases to make war on the miraculous elements of the New Testament. It finds fault with Christ himself, or silently leaves him out of account, especially in its Sunday school literature. It neglects the sacraments of baptism and the Lord's Supper, and it sinks the Bible to the level of books of other religions. And if the Unitarian Church in America is to have any great and glorious future, it must cease from its mere criticisms and dead negations, its everlasting platitudes against forms and creeds, its insufferable cant and conceit, its senseless screams for liberty, for which God knows we've already had more than enough. We must retrace our steps and rejoin the great Church of God with its many banners and Christ, the captain of its salvation.
The London Unitarian periodical, The Christian Life, sent a copy of Putnam's speech to every Unitarian minister in the US. Although Putnam's speech was phrased as an attack on the entire American Unitarian denomination, it applied most particularly to us out here in the West. The Western Unitarian Conference included the Unitarian churches of the Ohio Valley, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, and beyond. The Western Conference and its periodical Unity claimed as their purpose freedom, fellowship, and character in religion. But especially for Unitarians in Britain and back east, Unitarianism was thought of as, quotes, an advanced Christianity based on sound biblical scholarship and faith. There are many people in the Unitarian movement who thought that a denomination which sought to promote pure Christianity should at least make mention of God or Jesus in its statements of purpose at every level. So why didn't the Western Conference express more clearly its Christian basis? Because out here in the West, many of the churches had moved beyond pure Christianity and were seeking pure religion. The interest in world religions that the Transcendentalists had brought to Unitarianism had flowered into an attempt to find the common core of all religion. The Rev J. Douthit, one of our Western Unitarians, followed the example of the Christian life and sent an extra edition of his periodical, Our Best Words, to all Unitarian ministers. In it, he joined the denunciation of the non-Christian position of the Western Conference. He demanded some answers.
Does Unitarianism mean the Christian religion in its simplicity and purity? Or does it mean something else? Are we Unitarians an organized body of Christian believers with the Holy Son of God as our captain? Or are we only a nebulous, tenuous mass of humanity, believing in anything and everything in general and nothing in particular? Are Unitarians unequivocally and aggressively Christian in character? Or are we merely a heterogeneous multitude clamoring for freedom, fellowship, and character in religion with a complacent indifference as to whether the divine religion of Jesus is voted up or down?
At the 1885 conference sessions in St. Louis, the Reverend Jezebel T. Sunderland noted a dark side of the state of Unitarianism in the West. Too many churches had been organized on too broad a basis, including both believers and non-believers. The non-believers voted themselves into leadership positions. Children in Sunday school were learning nothing but ethics. As a consequence, Unitarianism is not gaining as it should. He threatened that, quotes, if things went on as they had been for the past few years, the time would come when it would be necessary to divide the two parties, the ethical culture, one, to go on by themselves, those who believed in Christianity by themselves. Sunderland did not mention that some of the more moribund Unitarian churches in the West were Christian. Some of the most vibrant were non-Christian. Samuel J. Burroughs, editor of the Christian Register, the national Unitarian periodical, heard rumors that Sunderland was plotting a coup d'etat at the 1886 conference meeting in Cincinnati. To Burroughs, Sunderland's campaign seemed reminiscent of the methods the Calvinists used against Unitarians in 1825. From the beginning of April to mid-May, he came out against the Sunderland faction. He quoted covenants of the Western churches to show that most contain no theological restrictions on membership. Of the 355 societies, only 127 bore the Unitarian name, and only 16 called themselves Christian. Burroughs proposed this definition of Unitarianism that could reconcile all, Christian and non-Christian alike. Quotes, Unitarianism is that free and progressive development of historic Christianity, which aspires to be synonymous with universal ethics and universal religion, end quotes. The factions were not at that time interested in being reconciled. Burroughs quoted the Reverend E.S. Gannett, the first secretary of the American Unitarian Association, in his objection to the attempt to expel Theodore Parker from the Boston Association of Ministers in 1843.
One of the first principles on which we are united, in opposition to the sects about us, is the denial of the right of any denomination to censure its members for mere opinion. Our difference from the sects about us is whether faith or character is the one thing needful. We maintain that it is character which alone can make saints or sinners, and therefore it is character which Christianity regards as supremely important.
1 week before the 1886 meeting, Sunderland sent out thousands of copies of a pamphlet entitled The Issue in the West to ministers and prominent members of Unitarian churches. Copies were handed out to delegates as they arrived. The pamphlet said, in part,
I would have the denomination defend against free religion by insisting always and everywhere that the conference has always been and still is broadly Christian, that we stand for at least and everywhere God and worship, the great immortal hope, the ideal of divine humanity that shines in Jesus. To expect men with clear business heads to take interest in ethical basis of religion, to give much money or make much sacrifice to support it would be an absurdity. Here is reason run mad.
At the meeting, the Reverend William Channing Gannett attacked the pamphlet.
Is Western Unitarianism ready to give up its Christian character? No. Is it ready to exclude from full membership those who do not take the names of Christian or theist? No.
Now we will vote on the propositions that they voted on then. To vote on a computer, use the reactions button at the bottom of your screen. On a phone, click more. 2 buttons you should see there are yes, which is a green check mark, and no, which is a red X. However, for some older systems, you will not find those, in which case you can use the thumbs up for yes, or the open mouth, as if saying no. Now to vote. The Reverend Oscar Kloot has moved. The preliminary object of this conference is to diffuse the knowledge and promote the interests of pure Christianity. All those in favor, click the green check mark for a yes. All those opposed, click the red X for a no. My. It seems so far unanimously no. At the 1886 conference, the motion was defeated. The Reverend Sunderland has moved that while rejecting all creeds and creed limitations, the Western Unitarian Conference hereby expresses its purpose as a body to be the promotion of religion, of love to God and love to man. All those in favor, click the green check box for yes. All those opposed, click the red X for no. And it appears that the vote is strongly yes now. In 1886, the motion was defeated. The Reverend Gannett has moved that the Western Unitarian Conference conditions its fellowship on no dogmatic tests, but welcomes all who wish to establish truth, righteousness, and love in the world. All those in favor and all those no. And once again, we vote overwhelmingly yes. In 1886, the motion passed. To follow up our story, there were several more years of division and squabbling. Then at the 1894 American Unitarian Association meeting in Saratoga, the delegates reached a compromise, unanimously approving a preamble for the Constitution, which mentioned the kingdom of God and the religion of Jesus, but also explicitly excluded any doctrinal test for membership and encouraged people of differing beliefs to join. From then on, the Unitarians lost interest in fighting over matters of opinion. I've told one of the stories of our denomination freeing itself from creeds and tests of belief. There remains the question of whether it was wise or foolish to have done so. We need to look more closely at belief before we can make a judgment. In studying the languages of the world's religions, including the Greek and Latin of early Christianity, Professor Wilfred Cantwell Smith discovered that when speaking of faith, the words the religions use have a great similarity in meaning. The words tend to mean, I set my heart upon, or I give my heart to something or someone. They cannot be translated by belief or believing. So it appears that we were right over a century ago to throw out belief. Belief is the wrong concept. So what is the right concept? Smith uses the word faith. In contrasting faith to belief, he says the following.
Faith is deeper, richer, and more personal than belief. It is engendered by a religious tradition, in some cases and to some degree, by doctrines, but it is a quality of person, not of the system. It is an orientation of the personality to oneself, to one's neighbor, and to the universe, a total response, a way of seeing whatever one sees and of handling whatever one handles, a capacity to live at more than a mundane level, to see, to feel, to act in terms of a transcendent dimension. Faith, then, is a quality of human living. At its best, it has taken the form of serenity, courage, loyalty, and service, a quiet confidence and joy which enables one to feel at home in the universe, to find meaning in the world and in one's own life. A meaning that is profound and ultimate and is stable no matter what may happen to oneself at a level of an immediate event. Men and women of this kind of faith face catastrophe, confusion, affluence, and sorrow unperturbed. They face opportunity with conviction and drive, and face others with cheerful charity.
Over a century ago, we replaced the word belief with the word character, meaning what Smith means by faith. And in so doing, we affirmed the right of conscience through our use of democratic process.
So the fifth principle, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic principle. Now I invite you to a time of community connection, our time of sacred sharing. If you'd like to share a joy or concern, please type into the chat window, sending it to everyone, and let us know briefly what is in your heart today. Deborah will read out loud what you share. If you would like us to be able to follow up with you, please include your full name and where you live in your chat. I'll put a stone in our sacred waters on your behalf. And now we extinguish the chalice, but not the warmth of love, nor the light of truth, nor the energy of action. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. For our benediction, let us go forth and affirm and promote the fifth principle of the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process, but always keeping that principle in context with the rest of the 7 principles. As promised, we just have one major announcement, and then we have today's breakout rooms. From our tech ushers, if you found yourself without a reaction button or without the check or X for yes or no in Zoom today, your version of the Zoom software may be out of date. Our shared activities on Zoom work better and your connection is more secure when you have the latest version. So we encourage you to update your Zoom app. Deborah sending update instructions last night on the info@bvuu.org email list.